Hi, hello everyone, all of our Global AI Hub followers. Welcome to the second webinar of Global AI Hub community with our second thought leader, Susan Walsh. So she is with us for the Between the Spreadsheets webinar. I'm Selen. I have newly joined the Global AI Hub community as a community manager, and we will be moderating with Sude, and she's also newly joined, and she can introduce herself too.
Hi, everybody. I want to say hello. First of all, we're really excited to make this webinar with Susan. I'm the social media manager. At the same time, I'm just looking for a digital marketing side a little bit. So I'm really looking forward to this webinar. It was so exciting for us. I hope you guys are going to get really good information about the data from Susan and her presentation. So yeah, Susan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hello from my data den. I am Susan Walsh, the classification guru, fixer of dirty data. I have been doing this for a decade now. I will tell you a little bit more in the presentation, but I didn't come from a data background. I have smashed down some walls and doors to get myself here. And I'm all about making data cleaning fun and interesting. I'm really passionate about having clean data because before we can do all the great tech and AI and software, we need clean data. And it's an underrepresented area and it's often neglected. So I'm here to make it fun and interesting for you.
Perfect. Welcome again. And I think you are already making it interesting with your perfectly sparkling background.
Yes, it's all real, no fakeness, all real.
We are happy to have you in our community and also in this webinar. So thank you again.
It's my pleasure.
We will wait a little bit to people to join before your presentation starts. And while we are waiting, we can also tell our followers and who are watching this a little bit about more Global AI Hub and what we are doing here. So we are actually a community. Also, we offer like courses, self-paced courses and webinars about technology, data, and AI. Through our platform. So you can log in and check out the courses. We have newly released Python course, and then we have also hubs to communicate with each other. And also we will be launching a job section also. So we have a lovely community with so many core members, community leads and thought leaders like you, Susan. So you can still be a part of our community by signing up in the globalaihub.com. So, and also we are conducting a project called 10 Million AI, which Suda will be mentioning.
General AI, firstly, is inspired me a lot because they're targeting 10 million people to reach AI side, and there's 5 of them is going to be women and 5 of them is going to be men. So they trying to reach the equal rights for everybody who's going to want to place in the AI side. This is non-profit, and they just want to improve people around the technical side. So Global AI family really trying and improving people, make them knowledge about that. So they just creating really good projects like 10 million AI. So this is kind of summary for us to know in 10 million AI. But if you're going to go deep, you can look in our websites or social media stuff. So yeah, that was it.
We can turn back to you, Susan, for the maybe presentation because people are already joining, I guess.
Fabulous. Shall we get started? Are you ready for this?
Yes, ready.
Okay.
Let's see.
Where is it? Right. This one and this, and here we go. Okay. So let's, hang on. Let's move this little thing. Don't want to be seeing that. There we go. Welcome to Between the Spreadsheets, classifying and fixing dirty data in AI and machine learning. I am going to be expecting some audience participation today with some questions that I'm going to ask you, and we're going to have some fun. And to give you a little bit of an idea of how I'm trying to make data more interesting and fun and what this presentation is going to be like, here's a little bit of information for you.
When you think of superheroes, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Men in tights? Women with superhuman strength? Capes? Lots of superheroes wear capes, but only one wears a coat. A data coat. By day, she's Susan Walsh, but when dirty data rears its ugly head, she becomes the classification guru. What are the classification guru superpowers? Consistency, organization, accuracy, and trust. With help from her good friend and trusty sidekick, the data whisperer.
Hi, Scott.
The classification guru wages war against dirty data, fighting her sworn enemies, misclassification, duplicate, and the typonator. It's the classification guru's job to clean up the mean streets of Excel City.
That was bang out of order.
So, when you're in Excel hell, don't let dirty data get you down. Call the classification guru.
Wow.
Okay.
That was fantastic. That was fantastic.
Where are we going to go from here? Well, let me tell you. First of all, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, my background. Then I'm going to talk about what is dirty data. Then let's take a little look at what are the consequences of dirty data, because a lot of us work and we think, oh, it doesn't matter if I do this wee mistake. Nobody will notice. Actually, what's the consequences to the organization that you work in? Because they could be bigger than you realize. And then we'll talk about how to ensure data accuracy. It's not foolproof. There will always be errors in your data, but we can help minimize those. Mm-hmm. And then I think it's really important to know and understand your data. So we're going to do a piece around maintaining and spot checking your data. And this is doing it in something as simple as Excel. It doesn't have to be really complicated and messy. It can be really simple to just give you a gauge of the quality of your data. And then we're summarizing. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to do some other tools because obviously, you know, Excel is not the best for particularly large sets of data. So we'll cover off what other options there are. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to share with you my dirty data maturity model. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you any more about that right now, followed by a summary. And if you are really lucky, there might be another video at the end of this. Mm-hmm. So let's start talking about one of my favorite subjects. Just kidding. I'm not that bad. I started with a degree in commerce. I worked in sales for my 20s. And then when I hit 30, I realized that I wasn't enjoying it. So I fell into data by accident. My first business that I opened was a clothing shop for women here in Guildford. And it failed terribly. I racked up so much debt that I had to go bankrupt, but I couldn't afford to go bankrupt. You have to pay to do that. And I didn't have enough money. So I desperately needed a job. And I found an ad online to work for a spend analytics company, classifying the data for their clients. And that's really where I found my love for data. I found that I was really good at it. I really enjoyed it. It came very easy and naturally to me. And so I spent 5 amazing years at that company, helped grow a team, managed that team. There's 14 people, managed all the projects. But it got to the time where I needed to move on and do something different. And because I hadn't come from a procurement or a data background, I wasn't a data analyst. I can't code.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that because normally people are coming from the data background and they just like go in deeply, but you really find your pleasure in the time.
Yeah. So I really didn't know where I could get a job doing something similar. And so it's hard. And so my option was to find another career or retrain or start my own business again. And so I went for the hard option of starting my own business. But I'm pleased to say I've made it to 5 years now. I have worked across all countries, languages, industries, I have
Wow.
classified and normalized spend data. I've built customized taxonomies. I have cleansed suppliers for P2P finance systems. And then I've also cleansed the messiest of the messy CRM systems, like your HubSpots, your Salesforce, your etc. So I've seen it all. I really have. And something that I noticed when I came into and set up my business was people needed my services, but nobody was looking for me because there's not really anyone else talking about this or providing it as a standalone service. And there's even less resources out there in terms of training. There's loads of you want to learn how to clean data in AI or in Python, but what about Excel? That's where we all start. There's not much there. So I'm pleased to say that I wrote a book called Between the Spreadsheets, Classifying and Fixing Dirty Data. That's available on Amazon through all good bookshops and literally covers off everything you can think of, from normalizing suppliers, classifying data, cleaning data, how to build a taxonomy. The dirty data maturity model is in here too, so you'll get a sneak peek of that. And there's even a data horror stories chapter where people have anonymously donated stories of when they've had data disasters. So there's a bit of everything in there. Yeah, it's really good.
That looks so inspirational, though.
Yeah. And then, I've worked really hard over the last 5 years to build a presence and a reputation and an awareness of my brand and my business and myself. And I've done a lot of webinars and talking. And I was recognized this year as one of the top 100 most influential people in data. So it's a real validation of the work I'm doing. So I'm really proud of that. But that is enough about me. We don't want to know about me. We want to know, what is dirty data? So the first thing I would love for you to do in your chat is type what you think dirty data is, and we'll start reading out some of those. So I know there's normally a little bit of delay on the chat coming through, so I'll maybe just open it on my phone as well and see if we can get some answers. Because I know you want to participate. You wouldn't leave me hanging like that, would you?
Nobody wants it, I guess. Let's see who is there.
I can't see anything. Hang on.
I think before they write something, I can tell what I think about their dirty data.
Yeah, please do.
I feel like there are so many datas, uncategorized datas with duplicated and wrongly written with type errors, like you mentioned in your introductory video, I guess, as the villains.
Exactly. And I'm seeing we've got some missing values and outliers. That's right. Data with high variance, wrong labels. Absolutely. Missing data, duplicate data. Some great answers there. So that's warming you up. I'll be needing your help again a little bit. Oh, they're coming in now. Yeah, blank values, typos, duplicates, more outliers, uncategorized data, dirty data. Yes, did wrong format. Data which isn't classified, missing values. Oh, you've got them all. Well, most of them anyway. So, you guys are good. And I'm sure when I go through this, you'll tell me there's more that I've missed. So let's have a look. First of all, misspelt words. How many times have you seen a description and taxi? I've seen taxi spelled wrong so many times. The X and the I flipped round the wrong way. Spelt with a C instead of an X. And I know in some languages that might be correct, but trust me, in this file, this was not correct. So things like that. And it can be even, I'll see a lot of suppliers like IBM. I've seen IMB. People can misspell anything, and it can cause a lot of problems. It can also cause things like duplicate records, because then you have two versions of the same thing. Then we have incorrect descriptions, and that is literally where something has been miscategorized. And I have done some posts in the past around this in AI, where it's the Chihuahua or muffin, and the AI can't tell the difference, and partly it's because it's been labeled incorrectly. But there's also dog or mop. There's parrot or guacamole. There's loads of great examples of where the AI is struggling to tell the difference, and a lot of that can be down to categorization as well. Then we've got missing codes. If you are in a manufacturing company and you are creating codes for new products, sometimes the new code hasn't been created yet. So someone sets the product up on the system and then they forget that it's there. And then someone else sets up a new product with the same code for the next one. And it can cause all kinds of problems, and some information sitting on one record and some information sitting on another record. And it's all causing us stress and frustration. And one of my favorites, and I know, ladies, you will have seen this as well, is information in the wrong columns. How many times have you seen an address and you have address 1, 2, 3, 4, and then city and zip code? And you've got the whole address in one cell, or you've got the city in the zip code, or the zip code is in address level 3. It happens all the time, and it makes it very hard, and again is creating multiple records, and it's causing lots of problems. And things like standard units of measure. You know, we are in a global world now where businesses are not just operating in a single country or region. You know, how we spell meters here in the UK versus Europe and the US is different. So this can end up, or do you abbreviate it to MTR or M? There's lots of different ways to spell it. But kilometers or miles, inches or centimeters, there are so many different things to consider. And, you know, your centimeters and your kilometers could be spelled differently as well. So this can end up with a whole load of versions of pretty much the same thing. And, you know, lots of confusion, lots of stress, wrong coding as well. Yeah. And then currency as well. Okay, hands up who has ever got their currency conversion wrong. I've been looking at a file and there's lots of taxes. And, you know, normally I work with procurement spend data. So you see a lot of taxes, and it's normally like €5, 10 euros, not 500 euros. And that's what I had in one. And it was because my Swedish currency conversion there's multiple different currencies, but the Swedish one had been done the wrong way around. So that kind of caused a few issues, but we managed to spot it and fix it. I'm just going to warn you, I'm looking for some more audience participation now, because this is the biggest one, formatting issues. I would love for you to put in the chat how you format your date, because this is where everybody is doing something completely different. Are you doing day, month, year? Are you doing month, day, year, or year? Are you using dashes? Are you using dots or slashes or no spaces? There are so many different ways that you can type a date in. And what that means is that you can't match documents together. And that could be legal documents, finance documents, contracts. It could be trying to match or even find emails, or, you know, in a filing system in your folders. It could be a lot of different reasons. And I'm looking and I'm waiting for these date formats to come in. There we go. I can see one. Yep, so that's a standard one, but yeah, look, they're coming in already. I knew it would be like this. There's a lot of different versions, and this is so common within one company, let alone, you know, the whole of LinkedIn. This is happening all the time. Everybody is doing it slightly differently, but, you know, I wouldn't just tell you this and leave you hanging. I've got some tips for you that I'll share later on. Sorry.
I just really wondering that I think it is the variety is making it like kind of harder, right? Like, because there's like a lot of like examples.
Oh no, we've lost her. Are
you back? Okay.
Am I?
You're back. We can hear you now.
You are here.
Can you hear us? Oh, I think she's gone again. I'll keep rolling on. Anyway, so that is formatting, and it doesn't necessarily need to be dates, but that's the one that causes the biggest problems. And finally, all those things add up to our good friends, the duplicates, which you will see in all data sets all over the place. Wherever you go, wherever you work, you will find duplicates. I can pretty much guarantee that. So it's about trying to minimize how many there are and how we can keep an eye out for them. So I've told you that I work in the procurement space, so it would be should be fair me to share some examples of some data from that area, because it's relevant not just to those space that I'm in, but also the wider data community. And the first thing that I wanted to share with you is, a lot of you are on LinkedIn now. Somebody in my team classified LinkedIn as a restaurant because the description said restaurant. And you think, how could you do that? But it's really easy when you're working with a large data set to focus in on one cell or one row or one column. You have to look at the whole data in context. So, for example, in this case, what the person should have done was looked at the supplier and the description and thought, that doesn't make sense. But I know LinkedIn is a recruitment or a networking or a training platform, so it can't be a restaurant. Just a bit of not enough attention to detail there. So context is so important. And then this one again. So Speed Courier is a foreign country company in a foreign country to us, but the title of what they do is in the supplier name, Speed Courier. They're a courier. They're not maintenance equipment maintenance. So again, it's about using context of the data. And then finally, never assume that you know what something is in the data. Always double check. This is Tinder Corporation, and it says additional data cabling. Now, I would have looked at that initially and thought, it's Tinder, the dating app. However, the client that I was working for was a charity. And so I knew that there was not much chance of a charity paying Tinder for anything, even advertising. And so I knew it didn't make sense. And so I went and did a Google search, and it turns out there is a Tinder Corporation Limited here in the UK that is an IT services company. So the lesson there is, again, use the context of the data, use the whole data set, and also don't assume that you know anything because it could catch you out. And it's the same with normalization. I normalize a lot of suppliers, and in my time, I've seen all of these suppliers and I've normalized them all to Grainger. However, there's actually two Graingers. There's one in the US and there's one in the UK. One does hardware in the US. The other is a house builder in the UK. So they're doing very different things. So again, I would need the rest of the data, the descriptions to see what was happening to give it context. And then know that it was two different suppliers. But hands up, I have got it wrong in the past. But, that's how we all learn. That's what happens. It's okay. Totally. As long as you don't keep doing the same thing over and over again, you'll be fine.
Yeah, this is how we learn.
Yeah. And it's easy for me to sit and show you a couple of lines of Excel, but the reality is we are dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of rows of data. So it's very hard to just spot these things in a sea of other data and other columns. Yeah. So again, later on, I'll give you some tips on how you can filter through that to find what you're looking for or what's not right. But how can we prevent some of this dirty data from happening in the first place? Well, again, it's like I said, don't just assume that you know something, or just because you've been doing the same thing over and over again for months doesn't mean it's going to be the same tomorrow. Always do some sense checks to make sure. And look at the name of the vendor and the description when classifying. If you're working with people and addresses or product descriptions and product codes, there are, you might have a business where you have a lot of products and all the hardware starts with a 500 as a code, and then all the clothing starts with a 600. If you have a hardware product with a 600 code, you know something's gone wrong. Either the code's wrong or the description's wrong. So the data can really tell you a lot. You have to look for like patterns, and that's how I knew about the taxes, the 500 euro taxes that I was telling you about. We see taxes in the data all the time, and we know how much a taxi should cost. And so it helped us know when something wasn't right. And then think about the company you're working for. Would we buy this product? Would we sell this product? Would we use this product? Does this fit with the business that I work in? And that will help as well. And then the values. Another example of that is hotels. When classifying hotels, sometimes we see like a 150 euro value, and then sometimes it's a 50,000 euro value. Anything over 5,000 to 10,000 euros is generally venue hire, so room hire, things like that, functions. And anything under that tends to be accommodation. So it's just knowing those little things. And if you're working with your data regularly, you'll start to pick up on those things. And then anything you don't know, hell, Google it. It's a skill. It's a legit skill. You know, there's so much to be found. Just be really thorough and use, think about, okay, I've Googled it. Does this fit what my expectations are not? Does this look like the same thing that's in my data? And sometimes it's not. I mean, quite often, I'm working with a global data set, and when I Google, it will bring back to me, first of all, anything in the UK. However, I might be trying to look for something in France. So, if I am, I'll type the supplier's name in France in Google so that I can then, make sure I'm refining down to get the right results. Or I could go to google.fr and do it that way. So there's different ways but it's always just being wary, don't just trust the first thing you see. Don't assume. And actually, so that's great. Yeah, it's all going to go wrong. But why should I bother about this? It's not my problem. Well, first of all, it's going to save you a lot of time fixing dirty data. That can be a huge problem. And it can be costly to rectify, and it could be costly in terms of the time that it takes to fix it, or you might have to get someone in like myself, and then I'm going to charge you loads of money to fix it. Just kidding. I'm very, very cost effective. And it's going to affect decision-making processes. So, how much are we selling? How much are we buying? How much do we need to forecast? If that's all wrong, you're going to make the wrong decisions. And it's going to impact all areas of your business, not just one. So, something that you do in finance will affect sales, marketing, production, and vice versa. It's wasted money. It is. You're throwing money out the window, basically, which we just talked about. And that could be a bonus for you, or a promotion, or a salary rise, So think about it that way. And then GDPR, that is huge. It's not just about keeping your data safe or personal data safe when it comes to GDPR. It also has to be accurate and relevant. So you need to have someone's name spelt right. You need their email address correct. You need their phone number and their postal address. But actually, if you only need their email address, don't collect their postal address. There's no point, just take the information you need and make sure that it's correct and up to date. Because if not, you could get a huge fine, and then you're going to be all over the papers, and it's going to be massive reputational damage. You could even get fired if you're not being responsible with the data. And to come back from something like that is much harder than just paying someone to fix your data in the first place. And let's face it, dirty data makes your life more difficult. And who wants that? But of course, it's not all doom and gloom. There's a really great reason to bother, which is, it can be hard to sell this to the senior managers in a business, like, oh, we want to clean our data. And they're like, oh, do it yourself. It can increase profitability. If you are taking, 2 weeks to do a project, and you clean your data up, and suddenly it's taking you a week, your company can still charge the same amount to whatever they're doing, but they've saved a whole week of work paying you. There's, again, more incentive for bonuses, promotions, pay rises, right there. And for the business, it's about increasing profitability, which is generally one of their big goals and ambitions. So it's you know, as data people, we all know the reasons why we need to clean our data. It's trying to sell it to the rest of the business that's hard, and something like this can make it a little bit easier.
After those key points, I think I'm actually convinced that all the data are worth fixing.
Yeah, and we'll go into that a bit more, because it's not just about fixing it either. But what about the consequences of it? I mean, you know, if you want to share any stories in the chat of when data has gone wrong for you, I'd love to hear it. But it could be things like you are missing out on cost savings if you're in procurement because you can't negotiate the better deal with your suppliers because you don't have the right data. They have better data than you, and they're taking advantage of you because you don't have the right information.
Oh, wow.
Or if, it happens. And if you wanted to, negotiate with a customer, they want to buy something from you, you want to sell it to them, but the information you have is wrong, so you can't give them as much of a discount as you would like to. They walk away, you lose the sale, they go to your competitor. But actually, you may have been able to give them that discount. It's just that your data was wrong. So it can affect it in all kinds of ways. Yeah. And things like supplier rationalization. I was talking about normalizing suppliers like IBM, I.B.M, IBM Inc., IBM Limited. Well, you'll have like lots of different records with all those different IBMs, but actually it's one company. So, you know, and then that's people spending time and money processing records that they don't need to be. Get rid of it, squish it down. And it can help with forecasting. You want to make sure that's right so that you don't miss out on any opportunities in terms of production or selling and things like that. And budgets too. Like I said, you know, what about if your department needs extra budget for next year? If you don't have the right data, then you're not going to get the budgets you need. And it's back to GDPR again, targeting the right customers. If your CRM system isn't up to date, you could be either emailing, but if you're posting things out to people, that's going to cost a lot of money. And you might be posting things to people that don't live at that address anymore, who are not interested, who you know, have unsubscribed, but you're still sending them things that, you know, that's all reasons wasted money and wasted opportunities to target the right people. And then things like shipping the correct products. We've talked about if you've got incorrect codes against products in your system. What if you send the wrong thing out? Or I've heard stories of when the dimensions of a television have been set in the system to 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter rather than 1 meter by 1 meter, which means in the system, it looks like you can fit hundreds of televisions on a truck. But the reality is they're about this size and you can only get a fifth of them on the truck. That can impact planning, delivery schedules. You might get fined for not delivering on time by big clients. So there's a whole range of ways that it can impact things. And it's not just that, again. It's also things like analytics. As I was telling you, I normalize a lot of suppliers. In fact, it's the first thing I do before I classify any data. It's what I teach my team as well. And as you can see, there's a whole range of suppliers here, but there's looking like some similar companies there. So at the moment, you know, we've got a range of values assigned to it. When we normalize this, actually, there's only 4 suppliers and the values are significantly different. And if you were making decisions based on this, it's very different to this.
Yeah.
And imagine if you send that report up to your senior managers and tell them the wrong information and they make business decisions based on that. So it can affect analytics and reporting as well.
Yeah, it's really detailed work.
Yeah. And actually visualizations can help you pick out dirty data as well. So that's a whole other presentation. Yeah. But when it comes to technology implementation as well, so, you know, we often neglect the data cleaning part of it, and errors are only discovered once this technology has been implemented. Staff lose faith in the data, they're disengaged, they claim it doesn't work, you know, they don't trust it because it's wrong. And it costs a lot of money to fix. And then you have to hope staff will adopt that technology, because if not, that project is abandoned. And I've heard of like tens of millions of dollars being lost on projects that have been abandoned because they didn't clean their data at the very start.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's the same with AI and machine learning. And I'm preaching to the converted here. You know, you guys know this has to be cleaned before you start, because AI is learning from training data sets. And guess what? So is the machine learning. And if that data that this training sets are based on is wrong, guess what? You're going to have wrong data and wrong outputs. And I've had conversations with data scientists in the past. I say conversations, sometimes arguments, where they are adamant that the coding and the program is correct, yet the output is terrible. And the reason for that is because the training data set wasn't right. And it's true what they say. It really is a case of rubbish in and then rubbish out.
Yeah.
And that never changes. So how can we ensure data accuracy? Well, like I said, you know, it's a myth to say that we could do that 100%. There's certainly things that we can do to help that along the way. And the first thing is to realize that actually, guess what? There is no quick fix. There's no magic button. There's no software in the world that is going to fix all your data problems. Some of it has to be looked at by a person. It just has to be done. Then you can start to automate once you know the data's right. But also get your whole organization involved, because data quality is not just a data person's responsibility. We all work with data, but we're not all data people. So we need them to get on board just as much as everybody else and understand the importance of keying in product information, people's names, recording notes and messages, because it can have an impact on all of us. And agree some common standards, terms and processes. So when I was talking about the units of measure and the date formats, like agree within your company, your organization, to all use the same standards. That will solve some problems immediately if you can apply that to what you're doing. And then my not so secret sauce is maintain and refresh your data. That is the key to keeping your data clean. You can fix it, and you can get me in to fix it, and I can fix it for you, and it'll be wonderful. But if you don't maintain it, I'll be back in a year to fix it again. You know, but the more you work with and look at your data and look for those patterns and that context, it becomes so much easier to spot when things are not right. And spot check regularly, because guess what? That data that you have cleaned might not stay clean. Someone might come in and accidentally delete it or override it, cut and paste something on top of it, or they might just have a difference of opinion. So you want to make sure that everything's consistent, and you want to go in and just check your data and make sure it's still as it should be, because it happens. And what I say to you is, how are you going to remember this? How are you going to get people on board with it? Well, I say make sure your data has its coat on. And how to remember that is this way. So first of all, make sure your data is consistent. So let's talk about those units of measure, those processes. How are we all doing this task the same way? Are we all running this machine learning model the same way? Are we inputting the data the same way? Is it based on the same things? Make sure everyone's doing the same thing. Then make sure it's organized. So categorize it, or categorize it by region, by department, by industry, by business unit. But have that in there so that when someone comes up to you and said, oh, how much did we sell in the UK last year? You can go, oh, wait a minute, I've got my data categorized. I'll just have a look. Or how much did we buy or sell to, how much did we buy from Dell in the US? Okay, let me just have a look for you. If you've got that data there and that information there, it makes things so much easier. Even little things like dates. If you have the full date in one column and then have a month and a year column added on. Someone says, what did we do in 2022? It's there to just pull. Or what did we do for the first half of 2022? There you go. There's the information. Makes it so much easier for you. And then, of course, it has to be accurate. So agree what the accurate is within your organization. And then once you have those three things, you have trustworthy data. That means that you can give reports within your business. You can run those models, and then you know that if something is truly wrong in your model when you run it, it's not because the data is dirty, it's because there could be a line of code that's not right or something else. That in itself could save you a good few hours. So things like that, it can really help. So if we can get everybody we work with to apply the COPE principles, it could really help. So yeah, just tell people to make sure their data coat is on.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter how warm it is or what time of year it is, the coat has to stay on.
Okay, we'll keep in mind.
Yeah. So I've told you lots of reasons, which you probably already know, about why we need to have clean data, what the problems are, what the consequences are. How can you go and spot check that quickly? Well, of course, we can do it in Excel. It is by no way the easiest way to do it, but it is certainly a way to get started before you start using other tools. So the first thing I've done here is I've taken the supplier name and the categorizations that I've used. I set it up into a tabular form because otherwise everything's just one long line. So this starts to look like a nice table. I remove all my subtotals. And then I'm going to start looking for anything that doesn't look right. And in this example, Dell is here as a courier. Now, we know that Dell does not provide courier services, so we would want to change that. But then we have to go back into the raw data to change it. And then we have to flip back to the pivot table, and then back to the raw table, and then back to the pivot. So again, there's a quicker way to do that. And if you've got two screens, even better, but this works on one screen as well. Just go to your new window, click on that, select Arrange All, and then arrange it vertically. And what's going to happen is you're going to have your pivot table on one side and your raw data on the other. So down here, pivot, so we can look and spot for things that are not right, and then we can go straight to our raw data and we can change it. But then what we have, we have to do is make sure that we then refresh the data in our pivot table so we don't keep going over the same data that's wrong, but we've already corrected. So if I change that Dell to computers in the raw data and then go back to the refresh all tab, it will change it to computers, and then I can see that in the list. So, and you can do that with products, you can do that with people's names and addresses. If you want to check, you might have one person with multiple different addresses or email addresses, so you can have a look at that. With people's names, you have to be really careful because you can have more than one person with the same name. So pivot tables are a good way of checking that as well. Also, I like to use pivot tables if there's email addresses and say your name says Bob Smith, but the email says John Smith. That's a good way of maybe some flags that maybe your data is not quite right. Yeah. All easy to do in a pivot. And so then good. You can also... hopefully it's giving you some tips. And if you wanted to go into more detail, then you could add in extra columns as well. So start with the simple things, and then you can add on that and start to look at, okay, anything that says taxi in the description, is it classified as a taxi? Let's have a look. And so you can add that in and have a look. And you can even use the filters to help you with that. But the other thing that you can do is you can flip it round. So, initially we had the supplier name first, but actually we could have the category first this time. So here's facilities. And then I'm looking at a list of companies that are in the facilities category, and DHL is there. That might not be right, Yeah. I need to go and check that. So I'll have a look. And again, you could flip email addresses round. So you could have the email addresses and then the people's names. And you could see if there's multiple names assigned to a single email address or postal address. So, and product descriptions and all kinds of things. Yeah. So that's really a super quick hint. And I think I've given you guys a handout that you can share with anyone who's interested in it as well. So you can go back and refer to that. There are, of course, other tools. Yeah, thanks. If people ask me all the time. My tool of choice is Omniscope, which most people haven't really heard of. It's a data modeling and visualization tool. That's where my team and I do all our magic. However, you could do this in BI, Tableau, Click, Alteryx. There's lots of different ways, but you can take the principles of what I've shown you in Excel and transfer it to whichever tool you're using, because there's far more tools than this. There's everything you can think of. You can do it in that now. And of course, I did promise you the dirty data maturity model.
Yeah.
And
the one for us.
Yes. I don't know if you have ever seen some of the consultancies, and they have these big grids called maturity models, and they're all like hard to understand and read and complex. Well, I was like, nope, I want something that you could take to your boss and say, look, this is the problems we have with our data.
Yeah.
And how did I do that? Well, I started with laundry. So if you've got really, really dirty data, the worst of the worst, you have done nothing with it. Think of it as a stinky pile of clothes on the floor that haven't been washed for a very long time. I also say that dirty data like this is the equivalent of turning your underwear inside out for an extra day and wearing it. You know that you shouldn't, but you do it. And then what happens? You get in an accident and you end up going to hospital, and then someone looks at your underwear. That's the problem of having dirty data and not doing anything with it. It's an accident waiting to happen, and you're going to get found out. So moving on from that, you might have D-class data. So you might have a little bit of categorization. You're probably still using Excel, and it's probably pretty basic, but you're looking at it now and again, and maybe you've got some formulas you're working with, but it could be better. Then we have distributed data. This is when we're using some tools now, and we maybe know a little bit about our data, and we might be running some programs on it, and we might be checking it maybe once every 6 months. But we're getting there, but it could be better.
Yeah.
It could be disordered data. We are so good. We've got it in where we want it to be, but it's not quite in the right order. So we might be using some automation, some software, but it's not quite there yet. Once we get from that, oh, that's my phone, sorry. Then it's my dad phoning. Then we get to the pinnacle, the dream, that is dirt-free data. And that is where everything is neatly organized and all our APIs are running and all our software is working and our models are almost working perfectly and everything is great. But at this point, this is the hardest point to be at, because you have to work so hard to keep it clean and keep it like that. And it's really, really difficult. But, this is more for a data person trying to explain to the rest of the business the state of your own internal data. So you could show them this and go, look, we're here. And, and this is what we need to do. Because telling them, we've got so many errors and talking to them in technical terms is not going to help. Showing them a picture like this, they can kind of understand that. So
this is understandable for everyone, of course.
Yeah, you just have to use it for data. You could use it for anything, really. This is my personal training journey. I'm here. And
it's so good.
Thanks.
Nice methodology. And
you could go to the receptionist in your organization and show them this, and they would understand it. Or you could take it to the CEO, and they would understand it. And most of the time, both of their knowledge in this area is probably about the same level, regardless of where they work in the organization. So that's my little gift to the world.
It's a life hack. I'm going to keep that, really. I'm going to keep it for my phone.
Cool. So that is the dirty data maturity model. We have, I had a ball. I don't know about you. but that is near the end of our session. Lots of time to answer questions, etc. But I just want to reaffirm that accurate data is so critical, and there are no shortcuts to it. You have to put the work in. You have to know and maintain your data. You have to agree those common standards and get everybody involved. It's not just one person or one department's responsibility. It's all of our responsibilities. And you know what I'm going to say? Make sure your data has code on. And if you're having trouble remembering how to remember this, here's a little prompter for you. Oh, no, it's gone. Hang on a minute.
Okay.
Where's it? Hang on. There we go.
Are you leaving your data out in the cold? Brrr. You wouldn't go out into sub-zero temperatures without the correct protection, so why do so many companies forget to protect their data? Unprotected data can lead to bad business decisions that cost money and put jobs at risk. That's why your data needs its coat on. This means making sure your data is consistent, organized, accurate, and trustworthy. Consistent means using the same standards, terms, and classifications company-wide. Organized data makes it easier to find. Think of it like a messy closet. It can be difficult to find what you're after, even when you know it's in there. When organized correctly, it becomes easier to find what we want. Data should be accurate, which can mean different things to different people, but at its most basic level, accurate data is correct. And finally, data should be trustworthy. This is critical. If your team can't trust the data, they might not use it. And business decisions around jobs, staffing, and budgets are all based on data, so it's got to be right. Like any code, there are differences in the quality of data services out there. If you buy a cheap coat, it might not be waterproof or protect you enough, and it won't last more than one season. If you don't invest in good quality data services, you will end up paying twice as much, if not more in the long run, to fix the earlier mistakes. If you'd like to speak to an expert about data in your own business, visit theclassificationguru.com to find out more.
And that's me. Here's my QR code, although a lot of you are on LinkedIn, so you could just connect. I'll type something in the chat as well, but if you scan that, we can connect. I create content like this all the time, so happy to answer any questions you've got. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Susan. It was a perfect webinar with full of explanations and metaphors and videos in it. So
thank you.
It was the only way, maybe perfect way to make data more fun, because I don't think that I couldn't think of that these spreadsheets and all that data could be that much fun. Put it in a fun way, lovely way.
My goal has been achieved. I am absolutely melting in this little booth here, but it was worth it.
Yeah, I think it's really hot there. Or maybe you're putting your coat on so that you're
always have the data coat on.
I think nobody's gonna forget that, never. They're gonna know what dirty data is for now.
Cool.
Also, we will go into the Q&A section. So if anyone else who is watching this has a question, they can write them down in the comment section, and we can voice them out, and then we can answer them. I think there are so many nice comments in the comment section. People loved your webinar and the presentation. We love them.
So thank you.
That was actually so clear. It was remarkable for a long time. So I'm gonna keep it the dirty data for a long time in my photos. I'm just sure about this.
That's great. I found when I first started out that I thought I was the least smart person in the room, and that everybody knew more than me. And as I spoke to people, really experienced people, there were still areas where they kind of pretended to know, but didn't really. And so I kind of, without being patronizing, I've tried to kind of strip it back to the basics, but make it interesting as well. Because I think sometimes we skip the basics and move to the advanced stuff without remembering to actually.
I think it's really important to make it clear out. Like when you telling somebody something, it's really important to show them it's like in the easiest way so they can get it in the right way. Like make it clear in an easy way is always the best for me, because I'm getting some data. The best thing is I have to get it like as simple as it possible so I can get it and like get into it about the other stuff. So it really helped me actually. Thank you so much for this good interview.
You're very welcome.
While people are like writing their questions, I have a question, I think, which I wonder so much. Like you are working with so many different data sets from different sectors and different companies and different teams, individuals, and all that stuff. So when you met with a customer and like start seeing their data sets and like start working on their data sets, how do you adapt yourself to that sector, to that person, to that company? Does that take so much time, or like is that easy for you since you have experience? But I'm really wondering that.
Yeah, I think because I've been doing this for such a long time now, normally it takes a few hours, maybe a day, to get familiar with a data set. And that's why if you're working in a company, it's so much easier for you because you're looking at it every single day or every other day or every week. And so if you do it regularly, you know, you notice things without even trying to notice things. It becomes habit. You know, I look at people might be sharing their screen with me and I'll go, oh, there's an error there or there's a mistake there. And I don't even mean to do it. My eyes are drawn to it now. Kind of condition yourself.
I was kind of thinking that maybe the classification of data has to do anything with the value of the data, because like sometimes some data are not that much meaningful for a company or a team, and sometimes it means so much. So do you do anything about the value of the data, or like do you just make it normalized and and cleaned and all that stuff?
I think actually it's probably really important to say that I never ever change the original data. I always create new columns and update it there because I want a reference to compare back, because how do I know if something's gone wrong if I don't know what the original data was? So I'll always create extra columns for the new data. And yeah, the value of data changes depending on who you're speaking to and so, but I treat all data equally. So for example, I might have a file with $2 billion of spend. And I might have 50 million, a supplier with 50 million spend. And I might have another supplier with $50 spend. To me, that data, I treat it exactly the same. The value of that doesn't matter to me, because that $50 spend could be 50 million next year. You never know.
Yeah.
So, you know, exactly. You shouldn't assume that it's not important information, because it could be. So that's really important for procurement people. For something like a CRM system, again, like we treat all data equally. How do we know that someone is more important than someone else? Or, you know, this is the data, we've cleaned it up, we've put it all together, and this is what you've got.
Thank you so much.
I think we have a question, right?
Yeah.
Someone was asking about the slides, so I guess you guys can share the slides. Can you? Cool.
Yeah, we will definitely share this. No. And there's another question, I guess. Suda.
Okay. Did you guys read the first one, or like it's just a thing? Because I just got to reconnect it again, so I couldn't hear that part. I'm gonna read the Amar's question. Is that okay?
We can go back and have a look. Yeah.
Okay, that I just found a really good question over here. So, what do you think about use the R programming language? Is R losing popularity in fields like data science and data analysis? This comment was written by an real fight Python on the programming language lover. There's a little note.
Actually, I think that we all have different tools and programming languages, and you should find what works for you. So I do kind of, I guess, visual coding in the data modeling tool. I don't write any code. That works for me. Some people prefer to write it out in SQL, SQL, or Python R. Whatever helps you achieve what you need to do and what you're most comfortable with. And I guess that could be difficult if you're in a company where everyone else is using something else. But if you can do what works for you, that's going to help you achieve your goals, because not all of those tools will be able to do all the same things. So, and you might even need to do different tools for different activities.
And also, like as you said, like so many companies using different tools, and even in the same team, people are using different tools. So when you offer your services, do you use Excel, or like if the company or the team uses another tool, are you adjusting yourself, or you are adjusting them to the Excel or something?
We ask for an Excel or a CSV file, and we put it into our software, and then we export an Excel CSV file, and then the client will go off and do some analytics and build, in BI or Click or Tableau or whatever they're using. But I've kind of created my own methodology for classifying the data. So we need to do it in Omniscope, and we need to do it with Excel, really. So
okay.
Let's see.
But most of the time, to be honest, the data's coming from different sources anyway, and we have to merge it together. It's not like it's all in one system anyway. That's very unusual.
Everybody using their own language, so at some point we have to get a common point.
Yeah.
Also, there's another question from somebody else, I guess. Divar. He asks that what are the tools one should be familiar with other than Excel to become a data analyst? I think you already mentioned some of the other tools besides Excel, but
I'd say Power BI seems to be quite common now, as well as Click and Tableau. Again, you probably I think companies demand a lot from analysts now, and there's probably an expectation to know a couple of different ones. You don't have to know all of them very well, but I think a lot of them work in similar ways. So I think if you can master one, you should be able to pick up the others. But actually, I really believe that getting to know your data in Excel is probably where you can add value, because most of the people around you won't be able to do that. So that's your kind of secret trick. Because if the systems go down and all else fails, Excel will still be there.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any questions? I think we
I've just seen one from Omar. He's saying cleaning up data is sometimes too much fun. Sometimes it's so scary that you don't want to face it. I enjoy the challenge, because again, what I try to do with my clients is show them the before and after. Because if you just send them back a spreadsheet, they'll be like, so what's this, a spreadsheet? They don't understand that it's been massively cleaned and improved. If you show them the before and after, then they're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
So that's like show people the value of what you're doing, because I think they take it for granted a lot of times.
I think it's like 50% to show the value that you're doing to like person, because they don't get it the first time. When you show them, they're like, oh wow, you really did a great job, and they got an easy way.
Yeah.
and get the value of it.
We've kind of spoon-fed people for so long and babied them like, oh, it's too complex, they won't understand, we'll just give it to them.
Yeah.
And guess what? Now they think it's easy. So we have to rein it back in a little bit.
Yeah, I felt it.
I had that effect when you showed the before-after graphic with IBM and other companies, the graph. So
yeah,
I think it's really interesting.
It's in every single data set I ever worked with. There's like common offenders, you know, Dell, IBM, PwC, because it can be PwC, P.W.C, it could be Price Waterhouse Coopers, it could be Price Space Waterhouse Space Coopers, sometimes with an S, sometimes without an S. And then if you add on Inc. Limited, SPZOO, ZA, GmbH, you get a whole range of different variations of it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is actually.
And I get, you know, and there, for example, in finance, there's a need to have the separate financial entities for legal reasons. But if you're in procurement or something like that, you just want to know how much you've spent with something or sold something, you know, sales, you know, you don't need to know the financial entities. So, yeah.
So they're really taking you.
I was wondering if we could like prevent those dirty data in the like first step when we take the input from the users or customers and like or anyone else. Like if we take the input like in a more formatted way, can we prevent like having this dirty data at the first place, or is there will be always a dirty data that needed to be fixed?
I think there will always be human error, but if you get your data coat on and have your consistent, you know, your standards, your processes, and everybody's working the same, and then everybody's trained properly, I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that companies make, is that people are not trained properly, and so they don't understand the importance of why it needs to be accurate, and that's why they might not take so much care. If you do those two things, then I think that would dramatically reduce the errors. But it's an ongoing thing. You know, it's not good enough to just put your data coat on. You have to keep it on all the time. Summer, winter, all the time.
Yeah. Coat.
Okay. The most important thing we get from this webinar.
Yeah. I'm never going to forget that. I think nobody's going to forget it too. So we have one more question, I guess, from Hakan.
Yeah.
It's a Minitab can be an alternative to Excel about data analyzing, I think. What do you think about Minitab?
I have not used Minitab.
Minitab.
Again, it's what works for you. So take what I've shown you in Excel and transfer it to whichever tool you're working in. I'll have a look at it. As I say, as a business, we don't use Excel. We are working in another tool. That's right for us. Might not be right for you. Find what is right for you.
Yeah.
Also, I want to ask something that I have so many questions, I guess. Something other than data, like more about your branding and your brand, the classification group. So I think it's really a nice and unique thing, because there may be services to clean that data, but like there is no one who actually has such a branding and avatar and like does everything with like her own methodology and like her own brand and avatar and all that stuff. So I think it's really valuable, and I wanted to ask like what were the obstacles you faced during that process? I think there are so much. And also lastly, I think there's a team behind this classification guru, and how people can get involved. Like I think there are so many people in our community who are interested in data and data analytics. So if maybe one of them or like some of them wants to be in touch with you or maybe be a part of the team, is it possible? How is it possible?
Okay, thanks. So with the branding, first of all, it's been a long journey, and it's taken years to build up that awareness. Literally nobody knew who I was or the business when I started. I started doing fun posts on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it started. And then I had a conversation with a procurement professional at an event, and we were talking about taxonomies, and she didn't know what one was. And I was like, oh, okay, there must be other people like her then. So I did a video on what is a taxonomy. And it kind of spiraled from there. And then I just connected with lots of people, the right, like either data people or procurement people in my space. I've taken every opportunity to do speaking events, webinars, podcasts. This week alone, I'm doing 5 webinars. It's crazy. But also, I think for me, it's not just about the business. It's also about like just spreading awareness and sharing my knowledge, because as one person or as one team, we can't save the whole world. So, we're happy to give you the tools to do it. Obviously, we can do it better, but the tools are there if you want to do it yourself. And I guess that's what the book is about as well. You get a lot of detail in there. And then as regards to the team, so I have a very introverted team at TCG, and virtually none of them are on LinkedIn. They lead very quiet lives. They don't really do social media. We are fully staffed at the moment. So, and I tend to recruit in the UK, so that my team are close by, so that we can actually, meet in person, etc. However, as world domination progresses, I might need different hubs. So you never know what might happen in the future.
Yeah.
But honestly, the work that we do, it takes a good 6 to 12 months to train someone up. It's a really heavy investment in my time and for the person learning. It's not just something that you can come in and do. And I took on an apprentice this year, and he's about 6 months in, and he's doing amazing things, but he's still got a long way to, I've got 10 years of knowledge on him, so he can look at what I do and go, oh, I can improve that for you, but we need to work together, in another year, 6 months, he'll be in it, I'll be able to be like, you don't need me anymore. But yeah, so it's not just a job that you can take people on for a short term, or it's a big commitment and investment.
It's not just about data, I guess. Yeah. Also, you have your own methodology and like all your own methods that needed to be taught and learned.
Yeah, it is. Everyone that starts now gets a 2-hour workshop before they get going. So.
But other than like being hired, if there will be anything that people can contribute, like a collective work or something, I think our community will be happy to become a contributor to it.
Absolutely. I'm looking to build a tool at some point this year. So, if people want to test it, then, happy to share that with the community.
Yeah, we would love to see that and like contribute to it. Also, I think we have another question in the chat too, from Akshay. And he asks that, hi Susan, sometimes you have a very huge data with lots of columns. So how you handle such data using Excel?
Yeah, a couple of different ways actually. So the first thing you could do is create a new column and just number it 1 to however many rows there are, whether it's 1,000, 100,000 or 1,000,000. And then you could copy that sheet, delete the columns you don't need, work with the columns you need. That will help reduce the amount of data. And then you can use a VLOOKUP to pull back through the updated information, looking up on the unique ID that you've created. So that's one way. And the other is to put that data in a pivot table, aggregate it down, export that as another Excel or file or whatever, work in the aggregated version, update that, and then again, using VLOOKUPs, you can pull it back through into the original data set. But you might need to use some concatenates to make unique lookups. So it's a bit longer than a 2-minute explanation, but there's different ways to do it. Or actually, there's a third way as well. So if you wanted to split your data by country, by region, you could do it that way as well.
Thank you so much. I think this was helpful for Akshay. Hope so. And I think that was all questions. And I think I've already asked everything that was that I was wondering too.
Feel
So
free to
thank
ask
you
me questions on LinkedIn if you've got anything else.
I think you have already put some your calendar link to, or the link of the book too. So
Yeah.
I think we can also share those links and with these slides, presentation slides. So thank you for everything.
Thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
It was really nice to meet you and have you with your full of energy and your perfect methods for fixing the dirty data and your amazing background again.
Thank you.
I think if we do another webinar, I think we can also see the avatar. I think we saw that one in your office or in your home.
3D Susan.
Yeah, 3D
Yeah,
Susan.
yeah. I've got a life-size cardboard cutout of her. So yeah, we'll bring her along next time.
Okay, perfect. Again, also thank you to all of our followers and listeners in that webinar too for allocating their time this day. And thank you, Susan,
really
again.
Yeah, thank you.
So we will be closing soon. I think if I have Suda here to finish too, but
go forth and fix your dirty data now.
Yeah, let's put everyone their coats on and
yes.
start from one way of your this dirty data model. I think that way.
Yeah, and you can have your coat, whichever type of coat you want, as long as it's on your data.
Okay. Thank you again for everything.
My pleasure.
Wish you a nice day.
Thank you. You too. Have fun, guys.